Hello everyone and welcome back to Nathra and Deer's Guide to Everything. In today's episode we have something a little different to usual. This is going to go into our character creation series, but it's also kind of a mix of Legend Forge series as well. It's a little bit of both. Legend Forge is where we take pop culture characters and turn them into D&D, but the character we have today is actually already a Dungeons & Dragons character and has been covered in a few different aspects before. But we're going to make a full-on character sheet devoted to the very famous drow, Drizzt Do'Urden, and hopefully in future all his companions as well. I've made plenty of magic items and really thought about what's going into his character a lot, and I've also got him created at 2 different tiers of play, so you guys can look to build towards a character like this if you wanted to play as Drizzt, or a character like him, following his footsteps as it were. So without further ado, let's jump into D&D Beyond. Okay, so you know the drill by now. We're just going to go over to my characters, and like I said, I've got a couple. I've got the hero and the master level. That's a level 9 and a level 15, and spoilers there, cattie-brie is almost done. But what we're going to do is jump straight into the edit section, and I will show you how I've built him at level 9. So we've got some multi-classing, so make sure you turn that requirements off. So this is set, I guess this version of the character is set just after he escapes from Menzo Baranzan, escapes the drow city and kind of goes out into the wilderness, kind of discover himself a little bit. He was already an accomplished warrior by that point, so we're kind of just starting off around there, and the second character will be a little later in his career, about 100 years later or so, after the spell plague and all crazy things have gone down basically. But he is still around because the average lifespan of a drow is 800 years apparently. Quite a long time to live, but hopefully I'll be able to kind of trickle in some lore bits here and there. So, Drizzt Do'Urden, also known as Drizzt Do'Urden, I believe I'm saying that correctly, that's his full title, known as Do'Urden on the surface. Essentially, he is a Dark Elf. We will be ignoring one thing about the standard Dark Elf traits, and that is the sunlight sensitivity, because he has actually been on the surface so long it doesn't affect him as much anymore, and he can see normally by this point, essentially. And that'll kind of move forwards into the future as well. So just take away one of the weaknesses of the classes, basically. Everything else though, all good. +2 to dexterity, what we need. Enhanced dark vision, keen senses, fey ancestry, and trance. All things that all drow get, I believe. And so while he's known as famously as a ranger, every stat block that I could find recently actually represents him as more of a fighter, a champion fighter specifically, with the training of a ranger thrown in. Just because he doesn't have the ranger class doesn't mean he's not a ranger. I still think that's what he does. That's his kind of vibe out in the world, following Mieliki, the god of the forest queen, I believe, the goddess of the hunt and nature and things like that. It doesn't mean he can't follow that. He just doesn't, I guess, fight with all the aspects that a ranger would, with the divine healing and such like that. That's not really what he's about. So we've gone for level 8 fighter, and I think I've made enough fighters now to not go into too much detail. I'll just show you the fun bits. Proficiencies, we've gone with animal handling and acrobatics. Animal handling due to him having a black panther pet known as Gwenvar that he can summon from wherever he likes, basically. We'll get into that in a little bit. Action surge is obviously incredible. Second wind gives us more health if we go down. Martial archetype, we've gone for champion, because this is what I saw everywhere. He always has this improved critical on a 19 or 20, which is only available in the champion subclass. We went for, in the ability score improvement, went for the feat. We went for dual wielder, which seems to be a running theme with a lot of the characters I've been making recently. We got an extra attack at level 5. And at 6th level, we actually went for drow high magic as well. He did show some prowess with the innate magic that he gets as a drow, but I thought the high magic means he just has a little bit more of that going around. We didn't particularly need the ability score improvement due to our +2 in dex, so it's worked out really well, and it just gives us a few more options if we are playing as him. Remarkable athlete at level 7, not going to fuss with that. And ability score improvement at level 8, we've gone for a double dip into charisma, just to increase our uses of fairy fire and things like that. Oh, sorry, how effective they are, I should say, because that's your spellcasting modifier for innate drow spells. So that's what we're going for there. And we've actually got 1 level in Ranger. He completed his training with a character called Montolio de Brushi, also known as Mushi, and he actually gave him a longbow of his, which I've made, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's who Drizzt did his training with. So we've gone for proficiency with nature, and this just gives him the feat to be able to have a favoured foe out in the wilderness. I think that suits him quite well and gives him an extra couple of languages and proficiency in survival as well. So Undercommon, Celestial and Survival. He would have spoken Undercommon already because that is the Dark Elf language, that is the Drow language, but it wasn't available when I was creating this Drow, so I thought I'd throw it in there. Ability score wise, we've just gone for a heroic set, so starting with 18, 16, 14, 12, 12 and 10. So it's just a good ability spread across the board with a couple of particularly high ones in Dex and Intelligence, and it just makes the character feel more rounded, like a legendary hero, like the folk hero that he is. And so as you can see in the description section here, we've gone for folk hero. So he already gets proficiency in survival, so perhaps we should change that on our other section actually. And with athletics and woodcarver's tools as well. He has a lot of like figurines and small trinkets. I figured he might have picked up something like that along the way when training to be a ranger. So funnily enough, I think we actually have proficiency in all of these things already. So I'm just going to keep it on survival. So jumping into the character sheet now, we get a good look at the statistics. You can see I've tried to theme this as cool as I can. We've got the new dark mode enabled on D&D Beyond as well to suit his drow charcoal skin. And we've got the purple arcane aura around his portrait, which looks fantastic. And the green, which is famous for, the green cloak that he wears to kind of bring it all together. And you can see there's a few things going on in the character sheet. We have a decent AC of 17, a fantastic ability scores of 20, 14, 16, 12 and 15 in charisma. Amazing. And I guess the fun bits more than anything is in the inventory, so we'll just quickly go over the spells. We get Dancing Lights with normal drow magic, and Fairy Fire and Darkness, but with drow high magic it allows us to use Detect Magic, Levitate and Dispel Magic should we need to. And I guess later on in his career, moving into it, he may have had access to some of these things. I just thought it made sense. Rather than go ability score improvement, I thought his ability scores were pretty good, so I thought I'd just give him more versatility there. So taking a look at his inventory, you can see he's pretty stacked for a level 9 character. A few legendary items and an artifact as well. So the artifact he has is the Figurine of Wondrous Power for Gwenhwyvar, which is his celestial panther companion. As you can see, this figurine summons Gwenhwyvar, a huge, powerful and intelligent black panther from a dark astral mist. Most figurines of Wondrous Power actually morph themselves into the creature that they're depicting. This one is very different. Gwenhwyvar is actually summoned from the astral sea. She can take a creature with her. She can only be around for 12 hours at a time, and she doesn't have to come if she doesn't want to. But for Drizzt, because they're such good companions, I believe she would always, basically. But again, this is available to anyone. All you need to do is search bracket NGTE bracket, and you'll see all the homebrew items that I have made, or you can just search for this one specifically, and this will be live on D&D Beyond when this video goes live. I won't read the entire thing, but for all intents and purposes, you don't want her to die in the astral sea because it's 100 years before it gains its magic again, and she has the statistics of a saber-toothed tiger, but is of medium size, has a dexterity of 16 and intelligence of 14. So feel free to homebrew a creature if you want the stat block kind of ready. You can't include other homebrewed things within a homebrewed item in D&D Beyond. It doesn't allow you to publish it if you do that. So I couldn't quite do that. And she also has pack tactics as well, having been allied with Drizzt for so long. Now these are really fun. These are the braces of the Blinding Strike, which have quite a fun backstory. They've been with a few different people, it seems, but these are famously of drow origin, and it seems like a few high-ranking drow warriors would have these. Drizzt went a little bit further with these. Early on in his career, when he first acquired them, he used to wear them on his arms, which would give him extra attacks, but he actually found that it threw off his balance a little bit. So he changed it up and put them on his legs instead. So I've actually made two variations of these braces. The legs will be on the next character sheet, but the arms on this one, at standard, as a standard I should say, they give you a +1 to AC, advantage on dexterity saving throws, advantage on initiative rolls, and you can take one additional reaction per day, basically, and it resets at dawn. Additionally, these braces can be equipped to your arms or your legs, and you gain the following benefits. So if equipped to your arms, you can take one additional attack action on each of your turns. And if on your legs, you gain a 20-foot movement speed, and anyone that takes an opportunity attack against you has disadvantage. So I went with the arms in this case, just because this is maybe when he just got them, he's just equipping them, and he just wanted that extra attack. Basically, he doesn't know that it'd be better on his legs yet. Super powerful items, and this is just my take on it. These are very strong, and I guess stronger than a set of these would normally be, but then they've been with Drizzt for how long, he's attuned to them and maybe got them enchanted on his own as well while he's been out in the world. Next up we have his famous dual-wielding weapons. First up we have Icing Death, which was found in the treasure pile of, bear with me now, Ingelo Acastimazilian, the white worm, better known as Icing Death. And it's a famous dragon in the universe with the longest name in the world. But Wulfgar, actually, who was his barbarian companion, and Drizzt killed the dragon and found the scimitar in the treasure pile. And essentially it is a Frostbrand sword, which is just a normal magical D&D item, a legendary one at that, or very rare I think. Except this one, this Icing Death one specifically, has a few kind of flavorful elements, and it also ignores cold resistance, which the normal one doesn't usually do. This is made of silver with a diamond edge, and the gem encrusted pommel is shaped like the head of a hunting cat. It's almost like it was made for Drizzt. Next up we have another attunable item, Twinkle, and this is the initial defending scimitar that he had, which was in his offhand, and Icing Death was always his primary weapon. This weapon essentially is a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls, but the first time you attack you can choose to forego some of that bonus to put it into your AC instead. So again, I won't go into the full details, but essentially that's how it works. You can sacrifice some to hit bonus to put it into your AC for the rest of the turn, basically, which is a fantastic buff as well. But actually this blade was broken at one point and then reforged in the future, which I'll show you in the next character sheet that we have. But at the moment it's basically just a defending scimitar that he named Twinkle. This is the bow I was talking about earlier. The ranger that trained Drizzt, Montolio de Brucci, also known as Mushi, crafted this bow and actually had a bit of an aversion to orcs. He absolutely hated orcs, and so I feel like putting a little bit of that flavour into this weapon works as well. So if you hunt an orc with it, you get an extra 1d8 damage of the weapon's type, in this case piercing. Equally, this is a finely crafted longbow with a taloned owl and a visage of a roaring bear carved into it, which depicts Mushi's companions. This is a magic weapon +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. There is also reports of Drizzt carrying around an item called the Agatha's Mask, which as far as I can tell functions as just a hat of disguise. So I didn't bother making a homebrew for this, I just took the hat of disguise and changed the name. Agatha's Mask means you can cast Disguise Self at will while you're attuned to it. He was said to have been equipped with a mithril set of chainmail, and so we've gone for that there. So it's basically chainmail that doesn't impose disadvantage. Incredible. And his classic Pilafwi, the very famous green hooded cloak that he wears, is just a normal Pilafwi. Probably lost its magic by the time it comes around to this, because when they're exposed to the sun they do actually lose their magic, so I don't know whether his was enchanted in a way to stop that, I guess. But it's his famous green cloak, and I thought I'd throw it in there as well. Awesome, so that is everything for the hero level of Drizzt. Let me just show you the difference between this one and the master version, then I'll show you the character sheet because there's a few changes there as well. So taking a look at the class screen, we've put a few more levels into Fighter, 3 to be specific. We get Indomitable, which means you can re-roll a saving throw should we fail. We get an additional fighting style, which is Blind Fighting. And now, Drizzt famously, or according to all the novels and things like that, when he's against the odds and in real danger against a particularly deadly creature, he would used to cast darkness and go into like a battle trance. Now he couldn't see through magical darkness, but he used to go into a battle trance and still be able to take out his enemies with ease, or gave him a better chance basically. It was his last ditch effort. So I thought Blind Fighting actually is fantastic because he just senses it. It's like a spider sense almost, as opposed to using his eyes to battle this creature. He has Blind Fighting to a range of 10 feet instead, so he still knows what he's doing when he's in the aura of darkness. I thought that was some great flavour, and I actually haven't seen that on another character sheet before. 11th level extra attack, need not explain. We still just have the 1 level in Ranger just to round that kind of out. And we've actually gone for something a little fun as well, for one ability in particular influenced from the latest game, D&D Dark Alliance. This is an Arcane Trickster Rogue, and now this is just to give him a few more proficiencies, so with Stealth, Expertise in Perception and Acrobatics, because that's what he's about. Sneak attack gives him a bit of extra damage, as I said. Cunning action just means he's really mobile around the battlefield, which in all the things I've seen of him, he seems to be that way. Stealthy and quick and kind of striking from darkness, so that kind of makes sense. The archetype I went for, like I said, is Arcane Trickster, and that's specifically for this ability here, Mage Hand, Legerdemain. So in the games, the new one, there's an ability that he has called Dark Hand, which I really enjoy using. Essentially a spectral hand, almost like Bigby's hand, forms and just rakes opponents down to the floor. And while this isn't quite that, it's just a buffed version of Mage Hand that can do a few more things, I thought it just made sense, and I wanted to kind of step away from the usual builds we see of Drizzt and go into my version of him, what I imagine he'd be like. And he seems to cast a few spells and have some more abilities in the game, and that's kind of what I'm basing this particular build of. But yes, this is, like I said, this is the master tier of play. Nothing else has changed on the sheet. We'll just jump straight into here. Wonderful. So I'll just quickly go through the spells we've gone for first, and I tried to keep them true to character as much as possible, because there's not many that we know. We only get 6 spells, 3 cantrips, 3 normal ones. So we've gone for Booming Blade, which just does a bit more damage, like I guess if his weapons are enchanted, he can hit something if they move away out of his darkness bubble, perhaps they take some extra damage. I thought that was quite nice. Mage Hand for the Mage Hand Legerdemain, which I've already mentioned. And True Strike. I feel like he's experienced enough to know the weaknesses of his enemies, so just putting that into a spell just kind of makes it, I guess, work for the function of D&D. Next up we have Expeditious Retreat. I feel like again he would have this with his the famous braces of blinding strike that increases speed and things like that. I think Expeditious Retreat would be great if he needs to get out of a dangerous situation in a pinch, and again it's not like an evocation spell, he's not casting a fireball, he's just buffing himself, which I feel like fits. We've got Protection from Good and Evil. I feel like if he knows what he's up against, the people around him can help him protect himself from whatever he's going up against. We've got Sleep, which has its own little backstory. There is a thing called Drow Sleeping Poison that I was reading about, which actually one of his blades becomes lined with later in the series. So I thought he may know how to wield that in an arcane manner, but you can flavour this like alchemically, as if you were an artificer as well. And finally, you can see one more spoiler, we actually get Dispel Magic on the Twinkle weapon now. So let's just take a look at all the changes to my inventory. So as you can see, we've still got the Figurine of Wondrous Power, nothing has changed there, he keeps that for his entire adventure. Twinkle now though is a little different. This blade is a translucent glass steel imbued with diamond. A star-cut azure sapphire glows faintly on the pommel, singing danger nearby. So it's got a Sting vibe from Lord of the Rings, and it's also been upgraded a little bit. At some point during the stories, Twinkle actually breaks, and Cattie-brie, along with another smith, I can't quite remember who, I think it's in Gauntlgrim, they reforge it with the power of a sword called Vidranath, which had a few abilities of its own. It was actually blessed by a genie and all sorts of crazy stuff. It had a poison in the blade, and so we've mixed all that into this ultimate weapon known as Twinkle, and actually in the stories he actually began to wield this in his strong hand as opposed to Icing Death because it was so good. So it is still a +3 defending scimitar, but it also has a Drow Sleeping Poison built in with a DC 14 con save, which can send people to sleep obviously, and this, the Blessing of the Djinn, which was said to give it powers to be able to basically power through magic. It ignored magic resistances and things like that. So I thought this kind of worked well. You can cast Dispel Magic once per day through the sword when you're hitting something, whether that be a creature or an object. So yeah, it just excels it to a completely new level, and it is absolutely now an artifact because there are no other weapons like this one. And as you can see here, we've actually got equipped the variant of the Braces of Blinding Strike, the leg version, which increases our speed by 20 feet. So now we're at a 50-foot movement speed, which is absolutely monstrous. That's like monk levels. But again, everything I've seen tells me he was a super nimble character and just an expert on the battlefield. And the reason why he moved it to his legs, because it felt like the arms were throwing him off, he put them on his legs so he could keep his prowess with his swords in hand, just move quicker on the floor, like focus on his footwork kind of thing. Another fun story was that he had a belt that gave him the strength of an ogre. So this essentially is a slightly changed, it's a gauntlets of ogre power, but turns legendary because you don't have to attune to them. He literally just wears it according to the books and things, and it makes his strength score 19. So he's just an absolute monster now, basically. So not only is he one of the quickest, he's also got close to superhuman strength in here as well. This is called the girdle of ogre power. Icing Death hasn't changed, and the Mushi's longbow has been replaced with what he got from Cattie-brie after she was injured in one of their fights. They had a bit of a romance, which is why they're always quite close in the stories. But she actually gave Drizzt her bow and quiver. The bow is called Talmaril, and this is a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. It was actually discovered just in a dwarven hall, basically a ruin, by Regis, which was another one of their companions, a halfling, and he gave it to cattie-brie as she was already fairly adept with the bow. And the quiver Anariel was a gift from, I believe, one of the queens of a silvery moon. I think it's Lady Anariel, I think was the name of the character. But essentially it never runs out of ammo, and the arrows in there are 20 enchanted alchemical silver arrows. Actually, they are +1. I should mention that. I'll add that to my inventory at a later time. But also, when wielded with Talmaril, the arrows take on like an ethereal quality, and as they shoot out, they do extra lightning damage to any target hit by it. After a couple of minutes, the arrows hiss and disappear and appear back in the quiver. Really, really cool. And actually, Drizzt used it a lot during his later time when cattie-brie wasn't around so much, or when she became a bit of a spellcaster. Spoilers for the next one. And I believe finally, second to last, we have this Whistle of Wondrous Summoning, which is another thing he got. So as opposed to just summoning Gwenhwyvar, this celestial Black Panther, he can now summon a unicorn named Andahar as well. This was a gift from the Council of the Silvery Moon for essentially just being devoted to the Forest Queen Mialiki, who is actually who he worships. It's a goddess of rangers, basically. And this was given to us as a gift because he helped during one of the wars there. As you can see, this unicorn is 17 hands tall, has a coat of white fur, an ivory horn tipped with a golden point, and piercing blue eyes. The only difference with this one is, as opposed to Gwenhwyvar, is the creature can just die. This is an incredible mount to have, but it is a mortal creature. It can be wounded. This is why this is a legendary item. More have been made, apparently, according to the things I was reading by the Silvery Moon, but this one's particularly special for Drizzt. And that's called the Whistle of Wondrous Summoning, if you'd like to track it down. And finally, later on in his career, his famous green Puafwi was actually swapped out. There was a gift from Athrogate, which came from Jarlaxle. If those names mean nothing to you, there are just other fairly famous characters surrounding Drizzt's story, and Jarlaxle Banray is actually one of the main characters in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, the guy with the really cool hat on the front cover. So that's him, and he gave this to Drizzt as a gift, and this is a greater Puafwi. Doesn't require attunement for one. It doesn't lose its magic when exposed to sunlight, as most do. So this replaced his famous green cloak with like a darker grey and black, I believe, from what I can read anyway. Everything else on the character sheet is the same. But there we go. That is the master, or I guess the hero and master version of Drizzt Do'Urden. From my point of view, again, this is just my opinion on what this guy might play like. It's a really fun build, a triple multi-class, something I haven't done before. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this character creation. Leave a like and a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. We try to do 2 videos a week, maybe more if I can squeeze them out. But essentially, thank you very much for watching. This has been Nathrandir's Guide to Everything, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.